Did you ever have a moment where you were just kind of with a group of friends or classmates or whatever, you kind of go through and you start saying like, oh, if somebody was a Greek god or goddess, like which one would they be? I figured we would do that today. Obviously, like, my friends aren't going to be here in this video, but I've gotten their permission to share their pictures and to kind of talk about them. I have limited my scope to 4 friends, and I am going to go through and categorize them, or I guess that I'm going to come up with categories and they're going to be given something, assigned something within that category, basically. Going in chronological order, we're going to start with my friend Sarah. So Sarah, I have known since right before COVID. We literally met in February of 2020, and we were in the same Japanese program. Sarah and I we started at the same junior college. I'll probably tell this story later at some point in time, but we ended up going to the same like university for our bachelor's degrees. We were study buddies, and I don't know, we just liked hanging out. We became very, very close friends. We've lived together, we've traveled together. Sarah is also one of those friends that, like, for me, it was the first time coming across somebody that maybe we might have differing opinions or like ways that we want to do things. And we're able to come up with either a compromise or, like, we work our way through it. And sometimes it takes time, but like, I mean, it's always been a very positive thing. She also has deep roots in like Christian faith. And so she kind of acts as a person that is willing to ask hard questions and kind of be a moral compass. She's like very thoughtful. She is one of the more reflective people that I've known, on herself, on her experiences. But also, whenever we spend time together, like, we can literally just talk and come up with random things to do for hours. Like, things are never boring with Sarah. Now we're going to talk about Kayla. Basically, Kayla and I met in 2021. We were going to be like co-officers for our university. It was one of those situations where essentially I'm kind of introverted, and Kayla, I would say, is slightly introverted, but is also extroverted enough that she might just kind of choose you, and then you get kind of brought along. I don't know how to explain that in a good way, but it's a good thing. We went to, they called it the org sync, which is where you would have your designated club meetings. And while we were waiting for the other 2 officers to show up, they texted and said they weren't going to be coming that day. So initially, I was planning on pulling out my homework when all of a sudden, Kayla was like, hey, can I vent about something? And then she proceeded to tell me the story that totally threw me for a loop. And she was asking my like opinion and like advice on certain things. And I was just like, I'm having a hard time keeping up with the characters. And also, how do you find yourself in this situation? Basically, from that point, we became a little bit more close, especially in the lead up to an entire event. It was a hot mess where basically we had to let go of the president of our club, and then the 2 of us had to step into the presidency. In that whole lead up and all of everything that happened since, we kind of got a little bit trauma bonded, and we realized that we worked well together. Kayla, also, I will say, Kayla is so good whenever it comes to a budget and money. She doesn't believe that she is, the way that she just like kind of calculates things in her head. I envy it. Anyways, also around the same time, we had both applied to study abroad and happened to be part of the first wave of students allowed back into Japan post-COVID. So we went to Kansai Gaidai. It was wonderful. And basically, like, I mean, she's amazing at making friends. She happened to meet somebody online who happened to be going to the same university. We ended up all meeting up in person. That was my friend group the entire time. It was like 8 of us. With Kayla, basically, like, she's so easy to travel with. She's so like common sense based that, like, I mean, and she will tell you if there's ever anything where she's like, that doesn't sound right. Just, she has good ideas. She kind of knows like what she wants and what kind of things she wants to do. She is probably the friend that I would say that I get the most growth out of whenever I hang out with her. She's a friend where I might not completely understand her mind or the way that like she comes up with things, but it's in a way where it's like, okay, I want to listen more. I want to know more about this person. Okay, so now we have Maddie, and I'm going to introduce you the way that I met her. Basically, we were going to be part of an MBA cohort together. We did our entire master's program together. All of the people in our class were together. We worked on capstone projects together. We were consulting for big companies all together. But on day one, I was like, okay, if we're all going to be together, I think we should have a good, like, solid way to communicate. And GroupMe was a thing, but I hated GroupMe. And so I was like, what if we get everybody on Discord? And I pitched the idea to our administration team. They were the ones that were hosting the orientation, and they were like, yes. And they let me announce it to everybody. And Maddie, who, like, I mean, she seemed a little bit shy, a little bit quiet. She came up to me and she was like, hey, if you want any help, like, I would love to be able to help you with that. And pretty early on, we kind of established study groups. The group that ended up being the most consistent was the group that ended up being my closest friend group. There were certain people that like you gravitated towards for different things, and it became very apparent when we started working on projects together that Maddie and I essentially share the same brain cell. We are very similar whenever it comes to decision making. If you have like an aesthetic kind of taste, ours is going to be very, very similar. We have a very similar sense of humor. We want to go to similar places. We graduated and everything, and we stayed in touch. There was a couple of friends that we stayed in touch with. She's part of my D&D group. But I ended up asking if she wanted to come along to Europe, and she said yes, and figured out that, yeah, we also traveled together very well. Then we started going to Ren fairs and stuff, got introduced to like their close friends. And just over time, it's been board games and, oh, we want to just check out these cool shops together. And she's got a fiance, she's getting married soon. I'm going to be her maid of honor. And we're very, very excited about that. But yeah, I feel like because we seem to be wired in a very similar way and have similar interests and everything, it's usually very easy to be around and hang out with Maddie. Okay, and then we have Zarina. And Zarina, we actually were in the same training group together. And initially, like, she kind of had her people that she talked to. I had my people that I would talk to. And at some point in time, our group kind of melded together a little bit more. We would start taking breaks together. And during those breaks, like, you kind of pick a person and you talk to them for a while. And at some point in time, like, we just started to click. There was some sort of like employee appreciation breakfast that we were going to, and there was a big long line. And the two of us were just like chit-chatting and coming up with like these random scenarios. And I realized that with her, I could actually like throw out a bit and she would play with it, which I find like is really, really fun. That's one of the things that I have with a lot of my friends. But Zarina is weirdly enough like my first, I would say, adult friend. She's the one that essentially like, okay, if she lived here anymore, which she doesn't, she moved to Dallas, which makes me sad. But if she still lived here, we would probably have like wine nights, and like she loves hanging out with my cats. And we get matcha together whenever we hang out. She's also my friend that I can actually talk to without any like judgment whatsoever, which I will say I can do that with most of my friends, but there's certain topics where it's just like that might be going a little bit far. But with her, I can absolutely like talk about whatever, and she will, like, it is vice versa, like reciprocated. There's something about her that's like a little bit like alternative, but also not like fully, if that makes sense. It's like corporate alt, if that makes sense. And she's just so chill. Like, I mean, she loves records. She likes to treat herself every once in a while. Um, and I don't know, very, very supportive friend. So now that you've kind of got an idea of everybody's personalities, how we kind of met, and our relationships and stuff like that, I'm going to start assigning categories. We're going to go ahead and start with, if this person was a Disney character, what Disney character would they be? For Sarah's Disney character, I chose Alice from Alice in Wonderland. It's mostly because of the way that Alice kind of approaches the world around her, even though the world is crazy, and she tries to make sense of it. She takes time and she reflects, but also is doing the thing that makes the most sense to her. For Kayla, I chose Jim Hawkins from Treasure Planet. They're both adventurous, charismatic, a little bit not rebellious, but there's a certain edge to them. At the same time, is able to just make friends with anybody. For Maddie, I kind of have a duo situation. I think that she is both like Lilo from Lilo and Stitch and Sully from Monsters Incorporated. And yes, I'm including Pixar characters. I don't care. Lilo in the way that it's like she's deeply caring, can sometimes be a little bit of an outsider and have interesting thoughts, certain sense of, oh, I need to do this for the greater good. For Sully, I feel like it's the heart and the drive. There's a reason why Sully became the #1 scarer, but also he did end up having a very big heart for Boo, and then at the very end, that sort of ingenuity to work with Mike and come up with an alternative to scaring kids. Okay, so Zarina kind of threw me for a loop. I think I've landed on Colette from Ratatouille. She's very cool and kind of has that level of competence that I feel like matches Zarina's vibe. If Colette, the character, was in Zarina's shoes, they would have the same sort of commentary. I feel like Colette is just general, cool aesthetically, and might have really good music preferences and stuff like that. So Colette is where we're going with that. Next, we're going to be doing D&D class, and I'm going to be doing alignment. And for alignment, because I feel like most of the world is neutral good, I'm not really going to stick to just that. For Sarah, this is actually super easy. Basically, her religion has always been extremely important to her, and faith, community, all of that, it's all super ingrained in everything that she does. So she's definitely a cleric, and I would say that she generally falls under lawful good. Because of the amount of charisma that Kayla has, I would definitely say she falls under bard, but also I don't think she would ever truly fight somebody, but she does have a little bit of that sort of fiery energy. So I would kind of multi-class her as a bard and a barbarian, and that's a really weird mix, but it just makes sense to me. She would be chaotic neutral, just neutral, but definitely on the chaotic side. Maddie, and I might be cheating a little bit because I am pretty much just sticking to what she is already playing in our D&D campaign, but I do truly think that Maddie would be a druid. She does care heavily about nature and animals and kind of being good to the world, the planet, everything in it. She's also on the chaotic good side. For Zarina, she very much gives off monk vibes, where it's okay, very, very chill, very zen. But then there's that there's a certain power there. But at the same time, I feel like there's just a sprinkling of actual magic. In my mind, her character would probably make a deal with some sort of otherworldly being and get powers of a warlock. I don't think she would be evil or anything, but just a true neutral. So next we're going to go into dogs and cats. So for Sarah, for cats, I've got Russian Blue. And then for dog, I think a King Cavalier Spaniel. For Maddie, I have assigned her Norwegian Forest Cat. And for her dog, I chose Shiba Inu. Kayla, I picked a Bengal cat. Dog, I would say she would either be a Dalmatian or an Aussie. For Zarina, I've chosen a Chartreuse cat. I think that's how you pronounce it. On the dog side, I have picked Corgi because to me that just genuinely makes sense. Okay, so next I assigned mythical creatures. So for Sarah, I have assigned her the gnome, which is an absolute joke, just meant for her because she absolutely hates gnomes. That is not actually what I'm assigning her. In all reality, I'm assigning her, I think, Pegasus. One of the cool things that I found out about them is that when they are like walking around, there's springs that will pop up around them. And apparently, if you drink from those springs, you might become more poetic, which I think is pretty cool. Kayla, as soon as I kind of like thought, oh yeah, I want to do mythological creatures for whatever reason, I was like, oh yeah, Kayla's a phoenix. It's something about that like bright blazing and then like regrowth from ashes, where like that sort of liveliness I feel like encapsulates her. For Maddie, it comes from Colombian folklore, which is the Madramont, which is apparently like the guardian of nature. She is conscious of the environment and animals. Like the amount of times that I have had random texts from her where she's like, oh yeah, I picked up a possum off the side of the road, or oh yeah, I found a dog, or oh yeah, I mean, one of her cats she literally just like found in the middle of the highway and she saved him, and yeah, Charlie's doing good now. For Zarina's is pretty cool because I feel like I did give her two. One of them, it's just purely for the aesthetic because Zarina just is like almost vampiric to me. I don't know, she's kind of like got gothic-y kind of sense of style. So vampire is just kind of a given. And then the other one that I think of whenever I think of Zarina is the Sphinx. It's that kind of level of like, okay, she is a guardian, but at the same time, very smart, intelligent, and like, again, if you get it wrong, then it could be very ruthless. So the next ones I'm just going to kind of rattle off. Pokemon, I only did like first gen. Sarah is going to be Horsey. Kayla is going to be Cubone, or maybe like Farfetch'd. Like those are the kind of vibes. Maddie to me is Abra, and Zarina is like Sandshrew. Okay, next I've got kind of food categories. So I've assigned everybody a dessert and a fruit. For Sarah, I said that she was a Milano like wafer cookie. The fruit that I assigned her to was grapes. For Kayla, I said that she is a key lime pie. So she's kind of that zingy fruit. I said that she was a pineapple. For Maddie, I've got her as a pumpkin loaf and then also pears. Then for Zarina, a tiramisu. And then for her fruit, I said a blood orange because again, it's that sort of aesthetic fruit. It tastes like an orange. It would love good citrus, but at the same time, it's the aesthetic of it. Kind of on the topic of aesthetics, I did assign people color palettes of kind of the colors I associate with them. For Sarah, if you'd asked me years ago what I thought her color palette would be, I would say it's like a baby blue and a like baby pink. These days, I would say like, I mean, the baby blue has definitely stuck. I feel like blue is a very calming color. It's very, it feels like an anchor of her personality. But at the same time, I feel like it's complemented by a kind of cream color. With Maddie, it's like earthy greens, so like a good forest green, an olive, and she's also bright like a sunflower, so that sort of like goldenrod kind of color. For Kayla, she feels a little bit more on the like emerald side and turquoise. For Zarina, she has such a distinct palette for me. She is the like blood red. She's dark purples, like slate gray, that kind of palette. The next category is purely for like my enjoyment because I'm a big fan of BTS. And so I have assigned each person, like if they were a member of BTS, who would they be? The one that I actually struggled the hardest with, because I feel like her personality goes in a couple of different directions, was actually Sarah. I could see her weirdly as almost a mix between like Jin and Jimin. Jin for like really has like it together in certain aspects, but Jimin just because of the heart. I feel like he he seems to be a very caring. They all are caring, but I feel like his heart really shows in a lot of situations. Kayla, I said Jungkook. Maddie, Taehyung B, and then for Zarina, she's very, very plainly just Yoongi. There's not really any question to it. So the next two categories are just kind of like fun scenario categories. And one of them, the first one that we're going to go over, was very much inspired by the trip to Europe that I went to with Maddie. And that category is, oh, they have wandered off from the group. Where did they go? So basically, to round out the story of where did Maddie go, Maddie kept wandering away from like our group stuff. Like I would generally go with her, but when we were found, it was always because there was a stray cat that she wanted to pet or take pictures of. For Sarah, I kind of see her finding like a nice hill to sit and watch the sunset from, and maybe there's like dandelions in the area. For Kayla, I said that, oh, she found strangers to talk to, and they've been talking for the last 45 minutes. And then for Zarina, basically Matcha was calling. And finally, we've got their role in the zombie apocalypse. For Sarah, I said that she would probably be good. Now, I don't know if Sarah is actually good at first aid or anything like that, but I feel like she would find a good flow working as like a medic or like tending to gardens and produce for survivors or whatever. For Kayla, I said that she would be kind of like in charge of supply runs and would also be like a good guard. Basically, if I had to stick a weapon and trust somebody to like essentially shoot the zombies down and be able to make it out on the other side, weirdly enough, it would be Kayla. Um, for Maddie, I feel like she would plan like the supply strategy and strategy for getting the community and all of that like humanity back up and running. And she would also be on researching cures. So that would be like her side. And then for Zarina, I said that she would be in charge of the supply distribution. So determining how people get their things and making sure that like the logistics of that actually happen. And that's kind of all that I have. So I'm going to leave you with a little bit of a challenge. Basically, I would like you to pick a person, anybody in your life, as long as you feel comfortable giving a rough description of them that's not too overly identifying or anything like that. Just a general description, and then put them into some of the categories that I talked about today. Or if you have categories of your own, put them in there. Or if you know me in person, like in real life, and you know my personality, I'm kind of curious what you would categorize me into. But yeah, if you want to leave those in the comments below, I think that would be really cool. I would very much enjoy reading them. And then, yeah, if you are interested, I do have a little bit of an update on Danielle 2.0. So far, she doesn't really seem to be doing all that much, and she definitely doesn't smell like bread yet. There's been a little bit of bubbling. I haven't seen any rising, but I think it's because I had switched flower type. I'm going to give it a couple more days, and then I might have to actually restart again. If you're wanting to get more updates on my progress with that, or just generally enjoyed this video and this little, thought experiment, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.